Hi everyone, you're sailing on Olive's Ark, and today I'm going to be helping you figure out how to find a reputable reptile breeder. So to start, I think a major question many people have when they're considering buying a reptile is, why should I buy from a breeder and not from a big box retail pet store? The problem with retail pet stores is the breeders they buy from are just trying to mass produce these animals and get them into the stores so that stores can also sell them in mass numbers. But that causes some problems because genetics sometimes are not accounted for, so you might get an inbred animal. Care is also not the highest priority. It's the number of animals that can be sold to the store and then sold to you. So it's not really the best choice to buy a reptile from the store. And if it is not a breeder reptile, because you might sometimes find some really impressive specimens in a pet store, a lot of the times those are wild-caught imports, which means that they have been taken from their home in the wild and shipped here to America for me, but wherever you are from. And the problem with that is they often come in with other parasites, illnesses, viruses. Overall, it is better to buy from a reptile breeder, but you want to buy from a reputable one because, again, there are breeders out there that just try to mass produce as much as they can. You want a breeder who cares about their animals first and foremost and is selling them out of the joy that they want to share to other people. You want a breeder who is keeping their animals in appropriate conditions, and even though a breeder might keep their animal in tubs, you want them to be in appropriately sized tubs with appropriate care and enrichment. So how do you find a breeder like that? First thing is first, it's always good to do just a basic Google search. For example, with these Gastrophilus praecina, if I Googled Gastrophilus praecina for sale, you're going to get many listings, but this is good because this gets you a list to start from, because at least you know these people are carrying the Gastrophilus praecina. This at least gets you a list, and now from here we will narrow it down. If they have a website or an Instagram, I thoroughly go through that. It gets me a sense of what the breeder is like before even talking to them. A good breeder is going to be transparent with their care. So on their website or Instagram or Facebook, they should be showing pictures of the enclosures they keep their animals in. They often will show breeding pairs. You'll get to see, kind of look in the background of the photo. Thoroughly browse, and if something makes you feel uncomfortable, skip that breeder. Because remember, you've got a list to choose from, so just cross them off your list and move on. Once you've narrowed it down to some breeders that look interesting to you, now you want to contact them. And there's a couple things that I specifically always ask a breeder. Even if I have heard they're trusted by other people, I want to talk to them myself as well. So I will either call them or send them a message, depending on their contact information they provide. But when I call them, I will ask a few key things. The first thing I'm going to ask the breeder is the animal captive bred, and do you breed it yourself? There are some breeders out there who will be selling animals that they haven't bred themselves, because many breeders work alongside one another and they will often sell each other's animals just to get a wider audience range, or some just want to get the practice of keeping an animal, and once they get that practice then they will start selling them off. So the first thing I want to know is, are you the one who bred it, and was it bred here? You want a captive bred animal, you don't want something wild caught. Some reptiles are only wild caught, and that's a conversation for another day. But if you're buying something basic like a crested gecko or a Leachianus gecko, even these guys are now captive bred. So you want something that's been bred here in a sterile environment, in a controlled environment. So it's good to ask, and if they can't answer that, if that's something that's going to bother you, you could always ask from, who did you buy it from? And then you can go to that seller and ask them, I'm considering buying this pair from this seller. When did you breed it? How was it bred? And then you'll at least get a background on that animal. So the seller, you're going to ask, what size enclosure do you keep them in? What humidity? What temperatures? What's their basking spot? And they should be able to answer all of this, no problem. If they start getting secretive with their information, check them off the list. A breeder should be very thoroughly open with how they keep their animals. They should be able to answer all this, and it also gives you a sense in what kind of care they put into them. If they say, I just kind of put them in tubs with a hot lamp, they're fine, and they don't go into much detail, you push them a little bit. Some reptile breeders, they're bombarded with questions all the time, but if you're serious with working with them, push them a little and say, no, I would really like to know, and then they should be able to answer that. If they don't, again, cross them off. Now that you know what kind of conditions they're kept in, there's a couple other questions you want to ask as well that could be important to know. Has this reptile ever had mites or parasites, and if so, are they treated for them? A good breeder will not sell their animals if they are under these conditions, but it would be good to know the history of the animal. If they had mites before, they could possibly still have them on them, even if they were apparently treated. So I try to buy animals that have never had mites and currently do not have mites, and so far, that's been true. The other thing you want to ask after the care of the animal and the health of the animal is, has the animal been handled if it is a handleable species? So my blue-tongued skink is a species that can be handled by humans fairly often, and so when I was purchasing that skink, I asked, has it been handled and how often? Because I wanted to know what I was purchasing, how tame it would initially be, and depending on their answer, then I could buy that skink or maybe pass it up or go to a different breeder or a different skink, something like that. A good way to tell if a breeder is reputable is if they are going to ship the reptile to you, ask how they're going to do it. A good breeder is not one to going to risk their animal. Their animals are still very important to them. A breeder will not ship unless the conditions are ideal, and even then, they will ship them in a certain way. So ask, how and when will you ship? And they should be able to tell you the specific temperature that they ship in. I have had breeders deny me shipping an animal until a later date because it was currently too warm or too cold to do so. And I am happy to wait. If a breeder does not think an animal will make it in shipping, I don't want them to send it to me. So the fact that they tell me no is a good thing. I'd rather be denied something than them just ship it to get rid of it and it dies on the way. And one last and final tip, ask the breeder for alternative pictures. I have never had this experience, but it's always something in the back of my mind that breeders could be potentially posting false photos online to take people's money, and then you will never receive a reptile. They were just using those photos. So one way to guarantee that the breeder is the real thing, but also that the animal is what it seems like, ask the breeder to send you different photos than the ones posted in the sale ad. I have done this a couple times before because I had noticed that the breeder was posting the same photos between multiple sale ads. It was all like the same photo of the same animal. So I asked the breeder, I said, can you send me different photos than the ones in your ad? Because then that also tells you what the animals are currently looking like. You know it will be a current photo. You also know that if they could take a different photo than the one in the ad, that the animal is in their possession. And you could also ask for, like them to be in the photo, or for them to put like a little name in the photo or a date in the photo, so that way you do know it's an updated photo currently what the animal looks like. I have done that before, and thankfully it worked out that the animal is what it seemed it was in the ad. So that's also a good tip, is asking for other photos of the animal that are not posted online, and that way you can guarantee that that animal is what it seems to be. And from there, if you feel like something is amiss, feel free to ask more. There are never too many questions when choosing a breeder. And you could also always look up reviews on breeders. There tends to be plenty of reviews through Facebook or other means and forums, so you could also always check those as well. But I hope this stuff was helpful to you, and that way now you can pick a happy, healthy animal and get it to your house safely. And again, there's nothing wrong with shipping. It's a normal practice, and then that way you're guaranteed to get a quality animal from a quality breeder because you're not limited by location. Guys, I hope that helped you. This has been Olive's Ark talking about picking a reptile breeder. If you like our videos, hit like, subscribe. We do post videos every Friday. I look forward to seeing you guys next week, and have an awesome day.